should be excited about the presents under the tree, but there aren't any because he's dead. Why, you sit here and breathe the same air that I do, and it makes me sick.
Lauren! Lucas died! Lucas is dead!
Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
In September 2009, Maak Damas carried out a devastating act that shocked the Naples, Florida community. He took the lives of his wife, Dylann Roof, and their 3 sons and 2 daughters, Meshach, Maven, Marvin, Megan, and Morgan, inside their home. After the murders, Damas fled the country to Haiti, where he was later located by U.S. authorities. He was arrested and extradited back to Florida to face charges. During interviews, Damas admitted to the killings and expressed remorse, claiming he was influenced by spiritual forces and personal struggles.
Hallelujah! Hallelujah! The new world comes, so therefore my faith.
Over the years, his case went through multiple delays, largely due to concerns over his mental competency. In 2017, after being declared competent to stand trial, Damas pleaded guilty to 6 counts of first-degree premeditated murder.
Dylann Roof, July 21st. Zach, September 9th. Maven, July 15th. Marvin, August 28th. Megan, March 21st. And Morgan, February 9th. For on these days, our family will celebrate the lives that came into this world, and these dates are far more important to highlight that the day these lives were lost.
During sentencing, Dylann Roof's brother read aloud the birth dates of his nephews and nieces, asking that their lives be remembered by those dates. He urged the court to honor their beginnings, not the day they were lost.
Guess what? The emotional roller coaster is over. It is finally time for the dear angels to rest in peace.
The death sentence is reserved for the worst of the worst homicide cases or murder cases. This was certainly one of those.
He was sentenced to death for each of the 6 victims. In 2023, his attempt to seek post-conviction relief was denied, upholding the original sentence. His case remains one of the most tragic and widely reported family-related homicides in Florida's history. In March 2013, Jimmy Horton was left in the care of his mother's boyfriend, Trevor Bishop, in Visalia, California. That day, the family had gone to Walmart, where Jimmy appeared healthy and playful. But just hours later, Bishop rushed the boy to an urgent care clinic, claiming he had found him unresponsive after hearing a thud in another room. Jimmy was soon transferred to a Fresno hospital, where doctors discovered a serious injury. Bishop offered conflicting explanations, first blaming a fall, then saying he had accidentally dropped the boy while playing. Medical experts quickly ruled out both claims, stating the injuries were consistent with intentional violence, not an accident. Jimmy fell into a coma and never recovered. After nearly a year in a coma, Jimmy died in early 2014. The charges against Bishop were elevated to murder, and his trial stretched on for several years. In 2017, a jury found him guilty of second-degree murder and assault on a child causing death.
This isn't something that just happens to something on the news. This happens to real people, not just druggies or bad people. It can happen, and you got to really watch who's around your children, whether it be a friend, a family member, or a boyfriend, and that or a girlfriend. Those things are going to happen, and don't be afraid to be alone. You're not alone. You have your children, and you need to put them first.
Jimmy's mother, Deezy Horton, was also convicted of misdemeanor child abuse for failing to protect her son and received jail time and probation.
You should be excited about the presents under the tree, but there aren't any because he's in the ground. Why, you sit here and breathe the same air that I do, and it makes me sick.
During sentencing, Jimmy's father, James Horton, addressed the court with deep sorrow, reflecting on all the milestones his son would never experience.
He had the narcissistic traits, and I could see that when he took the stand, because when that man took the stand, it was about him.
Bishop, who showed no remorse during the trial, was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. For Jimmy's family, the verdict marked the end of a long, painful road, but no sentence could fill the space left by a boy whose life ended far too soon. On January 18, 2015, Janessa Ramirez was standing outside a laundromat with her mother in West Fresno when she was fatally struck. The shot had been fired by a 22-year-old Brian Cooks during a gang confrontation, aimed at a rival, but instead hitting Janessa from a distance of over 250 yards. The incident shocked the community, prompting swift arrests. In 2018, Cooks pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter and gang-related charges and was sentenced to 21 years in prison. Janessa's grieving family, especially her mother, struggled with the sudden and senseless loss of a bright young girl with her entire future ahead of her. Years later, in 2024, Cooks requested a reduced sentence under California Senate Bill 775, a law that allows some convicted of manslaughter to seek resentencing. Although he withdrew his petition, the court chose to eliminate a 5-year enhancement, lowering his sentence to 16 years. This decision sparked outrage from Janessa's family, who spoke emotionally in court about the lasting pain of losing her.
I come to you guys after 9 years, but I'm coming today with anger in my heart that I've gotten so much taken from me of losing my daughter. You took my best friend away from me. You know, like they said, I couldn't even see her graduate high school. I didn't get to experience anything that you'd want to do with a daughter.
My grandbaby is dead because of some choices that Mr. Cook made on January 18, 2015. And there's not a day that goes by that I have to live with grief and mourn and loss.
While Cook's relatives offered apologies and insisted he was remorseful, the Fresno County District Attorney's Office criticized the outcome, warning that such reforms may deepen the suffering of victims' families by weakening accountability for violent crimes. On October 1st, 2022, a shooting broke out at the Soul Brothers Motorcycle Clubhouse in central Fresno, where around 200 people had gathered. In the middle of the chaos, 31-year-old Darnell Johnson was shot and killed, and 2 others were injured. Surveillance footage later revealed that Johnson was backing away when he was shot. The shooter, Antoine Keredine, fled the scene but was arrested days later in Roseville. He was charged with second-degree murder and other related offenses. In May 2023, a jury convicted Keredine of second-degree murder. Despite his defense attorney's claim that Keredine believed he was protecting the crowd, the judge and jury were unconvinced, especially in light of the surveillance video.
Darnell Johnson made the choice to pull out a gun on a group of people, and had he been a little bit faster, Mr. Johnson would have been the one on trial for murder. Your Honor, my client shows no remorse because in his heart of hearts, he was defending people. He had no malice submitted.
During sentencing, the defense also pushed for a new trial, citing claims of juror inattention and new witnesses, but the judge denied the motion.
DJ was a true staple of love. He left a mark on this world that will be remembered for years. My brother was a protector of our family and his children.
Throughout the court proceedings, he showed no remorse, even appearing indifferent as Johnson's grieving family spoke.
Probation is denied and the defendant is committed to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation for the indeterminate term of 15 years to life, enhanced by the indeterminate term of 25 years to life.
The court ultimately rejected the self-defense argument, holding Keredine fully accountable for the deadly shooting. In December 2023, Keredine was sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. In August 2018, after Jennifer Mesta and her husband became homeless, their daughters and sons were placed into foster care. One of them, David, was placed with foster mother Darlene Valdovinos Aguilera in Visalia, California. Soon after, David was rushed to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Initially, Valdovinos claimed he had fallen off a bed and even tried to blame one of David's siblings, but under investigation, she confessed. David spent 2 weeks in a coma and survived, though the damage left permanent effects. He now lives with developmental challenges and requires long-term medical care, including therapy and special education support.
He's going to need help for the rest of his life. This brain injury is permanent. He has recovered quite well for having that injury, but he can't eat right, he can't retain information. You know, he's had to have physical therapy, all kinds of stuff. Like It's been a lot.
David's family, speaking publicly for the first time, described the emotional toll of the past 5 years, not only for themselves, but for all David's siblings.
It's been like a really hard thing, especially for our kids. They went through a lot of physical abuse and mental, emotional.
Despite his progress, David's condition still requires constant attention. The family is now pursuing legal action against Tulare County Child Protective Services, alleging negligence for placing David in an unsafe environment. Prosecutor Kelly Habib, who handled the case, called it one of the most severe cases she's encountered.
I would say in this case we have a special allegation that great bodily injury was inflicted. So there's only certain circumstances that we can file that charge in.
After a prolonged legal process, Valdovinos pleaded no contest in 2024 and was sentenced to 11 years in prison. While the sentence offered some closure, David's parents say their journey toward healing is far from over. In October 2021, just 3 days before his birthday, Xander Villalobos was found unresponsive in a Fresno apartment he shared with his mother, Nikki Roos, and her boyfriend, Aaron Motton. The boy was rushed to the hospital, but couldn't be saved. An autopsy later revealed devastating injuries consistent with severe physical abuse. Motton initially claimed he performed CPR to revive the boy, but during his 2023 trial, he admitted to shaking Xander when CPR didn't seem to help.
When I go back to the pod, I am emotional, and I do stretch every day. I mean, I try helping him breathe. That's all I can say, you know. I try my best.
In court, a jury found Motton guilty of second-degree murder and assault on a causing death.
I just want you to know that we trusted you. Nikki trusted you.
Objective.
You couldn't shed one tear for Xander, even though you claim to have loved him like your own.
At the sentencing in early 2024, he showed little emotion, even as Xander's grieving grandmother tearfully reminded him of the trust he had betrayed.
This has been described as a tragedy, and I can't in any way lessen that description. It's the definition of a tragedy.
He was spoiled and we all loved him, and he won't ever be forgotten. I just want to feel him. I just want to hold him.
Motton was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Xander's mother recalled her son as joyful and deeply loved, saying he should have been starting school and celebrating birthdays, not remembered at a cemetery. Although the verdict delivered justice on paper, the family said the pain of losing Xander continues every day. Motton's attorney announced plans to appeal the conviction. On March 25, 2014, Alonzo AJ Thomas Jr. was left in the care of his mother's boyfriend, LaJuan Delshon Hayes, while his mother went to work in Chivoli, Kentucky. That day ended in tragedy. Emergency responders arrived at the home to find AJ unresponsive. He was rushed to the hospital, but despite medical efforts, the boy died during surgery. An autopsy later confirmed severe injuries, signs consistent with physical abuse. Hayes told authorities he delayed calling for help because of an outstanding warrant.
The Commonwealth has made an offer on an amended charge of manslaughter in the first degree, which carries a penalty of 10 to 20 years.
Nearly 2 years later, in January 2016, Hayes entered an offered plea to first-degree manslaughter, meaning he did not admit guilt but acknowledged there was enough evidence to convict him.
I was at the hospital when they brought him in, beaten in the back of the kidney, beaten in the head, tortured in the shower, and I don't think this is enough. If I can ask, he needs to go to Eddyville, not one of those small vacation prisons, and I just don't understand it. No, I'm gonna sit right here, but I think something needs to be said.
In court, AJ's family expressed heartbreak and frustration, believing the sentence fell short of justice.
This is very hard, because every day I wake up, he's not there. And this is like a flash. Because every day I hope that he still is here. And I wish that my son can receive justice.
Hayes, emotional and briefly tearful, addressed the court and called the boy's death a tragic mistake.
And I felt like I was helping AJ. There was things that I should have done that I didn't do. And I want to apologize to y'all about that. And I'm sorry for that. I truly am.
He offered an apology that did little to ease the family's grief. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison with no probation and eligibility for parole only after serving 85% of the term. In August 2016, Lucas Riley was driving his newly purchased Mini Cooper along State Route 67 in Ramona, California, when tragedy struck. Roy Duncan, who had spent the day drinking at his granddaughter's birthday party, got behind the wheel of his GMC truck with a blood alcohol level nearly twice the legal limit. After running a stoplight and hitting one vehicle, Duncan continued driving erratically until he crashed into Riley's car. Riley's injuries were so severe that he had to be identified through dental records.
This man annihilated my little brother's body beyond recognition.
Inside Duncan's truck, officers later discovered 170 unopened beers. In November 2016, Duncan pleaded guilty to gross vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated and DUI. In court, Lucas's grieving family shared emotional victim impact statements. His sister, Lauren Riley, called him Lucas Light, describing the joy he brought to their lives.
This man is not only a murderer, but also a thief. He robbed us of the bright light and promising future my one and only little brother worked tirelessly to achieve.
She recounted the time when she heard the heart-wrenching news.
Lauren! Lucas died! Lucas is dead! Please, Jesus. Please don't let this be true.
His fiancée, Sha Wickwire, spoke through tears about the future they had planned and the devastating loss she now carries.
I lost the love of my life. He was on a boat, and the boat was sinking, and there was only one life jacket. Lucas would have gave Mr. Duncan that life jacket.
Riley's mother, Tammy Riley, painfully reflected on the irony of Lucas surviving one DUI-related incident months earlier, only to lose his life to another.
The injuries to Lucas and the manner of his death is the most anguishing I have encountered in a case of this nature.
The courtroom was filled with anguish as the judge acknowledged the horrific nature of Lucas's death before handing down the maximum sentence. Duncan received 11 years and 8 months in prison with no eligibility for parole until serving 85% of his term. In November 2019, JC Willett was riding in the backseat of a friend's car in Chowchilla, California, when tragedy struck. Marcos Miguel Torres, driving under the influence, ran a stop sign and crashed into their vehicle, killing JC and injuring others. He was arrested at the scene and later charged with murder, though the case moved slowly through the court system. For over 4 years, Torres remained free during trial proceedings, frustrating JC's grieving family. Eventually, a jury found him guilty of gross vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. At the sentencing hearing, JC's mother, Melody Willett, gave a powerful statement in court, reminding Torres and his family that while he would one day return from prison, her daughter never would.
My daughter's gone, and she's never coming back. He will go to prison, he will come back. He will be alive. You can go visit him, you can tell him you love him, and he can hear him say it back. And your sorrow that you feel is just a fraction of what I feel, because you know he's still alive.
Torres, too nervous to speak, had his attorney read a letter in which he expressed regret for causing JC's death.
Every day I think about the fact that JC died and I caused her death. I think about everyone who was hurt because of what I did. I am sorry for the hurt and the loss I caused.
She had the most beautiful smile that I could remember. She had such a kind soul. And I just carry her with me in her memory, and
You live for her.
Right, I live for her.
She lives through us.
We're gonna do everything that she wanted to do.
The judge sentenced him to 8 years and 4 months in prison. Although the family believes justice has been served, they continue to carry the weight of their loss, vowing to live in a way that honors JC's memory and hoping their tragedy serves as a warning against the dangers of drunk driving. In April 2024, Kinsley Welty was found unresponsive in her Indianapolis home after what authorities described as prolonged neglect. Weighing only 21 pounds, she was in poor condition and was transported to Riley Hospital, where she later passed away. Investigators say Kinsley had been kept isolated in a small space and had not received the care she needed. Her mother, Toni McClure, was charged with murder and neglect. Ryan Smith, McClure's boyfriend, was also charged with neglect resulting in death. Not long after Kinsley Key's grandmother, Tammy Halsey, was arrested, accused of knowing about the situation and failing to act. Messages between McClure and Halsey reportedly showed ongoing conversations about how to manage Kinsley's behavior, with troubling indications that they were aware of her suffering.
What we are alleging here is that Grandma had prolonged periods of contact with this child, was in a position to help this child. There was a lot of conversation between both Mom and Grandma about what was going on with this child and what was the best way to deal with some of these issues. And I think that's the part that's so disheartening, is that nobody stepped in and said, this child needs help. What can we do to try to help this child? And the thing that you consistently see and hear in these conversations is people are concerned about their own well-being. Well, I might get in trouble if someone is aware of this.
The girl's grandparents, Tricia and Brian Welty, had previously expressed concerns to child protection authorities, but the girl was returned to her mother's care. McClure had a prior neglect charge in 2018, but served only a short sentence.
DCS was at the house the day that this child passed away, and they were not aware, or when they made that house visit, they certainly didn't uncover or appreciate what was going on inside the house. And so I think that poses a lot of questions for us as a prosecutor's office in terms of what systems were in place. Did those systems necessarily protect that child, and then what can be done in the future?
Following Kinsley's death, her family and local officials have called for a full investigation into the Department of Child Services, questioning whether the system failed to protect a vulnerable girl. Timothy Morgan, a 68-year-old man from Detroit, Michigan, had been living quietly after returning to the state following years spent in Florida and Illinois. On a quiet Sunday morning in May 2025, Morgan voluntarily walked into Detroit's 11th Police Precinct. Calmly and without prompting, he told officers that he had done something terrible. He believed he had harmed someone he thought was no longer his wife, but a demon impersonating her. Police were dispatched to his home on Conley Street, where they found 67-year-old Catherine Morgan deceased. The scene showed clear signs of a violent encounter. According to investigators, Morgan told police he had killed his wife, believing he was defending himself from something not human. Officers noted significant physical evidence throughout the home, leading prosecutors to describe the event as deeply disturbing.
A first-degree premeditated murder charge for the defendant. I will admit that there is no known criminal history as far as prior convictions. There are prior contacts from Florida, Illinois, so there is some concern for flight risk. It's understood from the investigation that Mr. Morgan has resided outside of the state for a significant period of time and only recently returned some years ago. The allegations themselves are very conclusive. What the court doesn't have is the photographs. The evidence has been presented to our office through a warrant. This is by far one of the worst cases I've seen in my career handling homicide cases. The scene itself, when officers arrived and documented it, looked like something from a horror movie, frankly. They notated that there was blood splattered throughout the apartment, as well as pieces of the deceased's skull and tissue matter all over the walls, including the ceiling. Mr. Morgan does make an admission to officers. He does turn himself into the 11th precinct, admitting that he a demon inhabiting his wife at the time. People have some concerns given the allegations, the severity of the offense. I am asking to Court Rule 6.106, given the fact that the defendant is charged with murder, that he be denied pretrial release. I believe that he is a concern for the public, being a danger to the public, as well as a flight risk given his out-of-state contacts. He does have family in the state of Florida and would ask bond to be remanded.
At his arraignment in 36th District Court, Morgan appeared before the judge as the charge of first-degree murder was formally read.
In case 260577473, People State of Michigan versus Timothy Morgan. Appearance for the people.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Tina Moynihan on behalf of the people, P84692.
Good afternoon. Shive, are you up first? Okay.
Yes, I was muted. I'm sorry. Jessica Shive, P number 81798, on behalf of Mr. Morgan, who is from reading and understands his constitutional rights and stands here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, people. For a waive formal reading, enter a plea of not guilty. Mr. Morgan, I'm scheduling 2 court dates. You must attend both of them. Probable cause via Zoom, May 16th. That's a Friday, 8:30, 36th District Court, Judge JK. You have a right to a preliminary examination in person, May 22nd, the following Thursday, in person, Judge JK, the 36th District Court, 8:30. Understood?
Your Honor, could I say something?
What's that?
I don't, what are you're gonna let me out?
I didn't say, no, I'm scheduling 2 court dates. That's how far we've gotten so far. Those are the court dates that you must attend. And now we're about to address bond.
Wait a minute, I'm trying to understand something. Am I going to jail?
Well, you're in jail, but as far as, we're about to address that, sir. You got a counsel and a prosecutor about to make arguments, and then I'll make a decision. Okay? If you have any questions after that, you can ask. So just listen closely. People, no need to apologize. Go ahead.
His defense entered a not guilty plea, and court dates were set for later that month. His attorney emphasized his cooperation, lack of violent history, and apparent mental health struggles, asking the court to consider a monitored release due to his age, health issues, and voluntary surrender.
Your Honor, my client is presumed innocent unless proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. He's 68 years old. He receives disability. Your Honor, my client is not at flight risk. Look at the report. He walked into the precinct. He turned himself in and he said to the officers, I killed a demon that was pretending to be my wife and I'm turning myself in. He goes there and he walks in and he turns himself in, and clearly he is struggling from some mental illness from that statement itself, Your Honor. But we are not here for that. You know, he'll have his trial, he'll have his day in court. We're here for arraignment. But at this time, he is presumed innocent unless proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I know the court usually remands matters like this. However, given that he has no assaultive history or history like this, Your Honor, and he's not on probation or parole or anything pending, I'm asking the court to consider a cash bond and not a remand with a GPS tether and house arrest. Any bond amount is going to be unaffordable. He does have heart issues. He says his condition is very bad. I asked the court to respectfully mark his file medical. However, I just don't, him turning himself in on something like this is not on these kind of allegations without even being asked. It doesn't say anybody called him or anything. He just went there, turned himself in, and made these statements, allegedly. So I don't believe there's a flight risk here. And he also does not have a history of being assaultive. So, but I understand that he is charged with homicide. I'm asking the court to consider a high cash bond with a GPS tether and house arrest, Your Honor.
The prosecution, however, raised concerns about public safety and the serious nature of the allegation, urging the court to deny bond.
Mr. Morgan, I appreciate and consider that you surrendered yourself to authorities to address this allegation, as well as your lack of history, criminal or capious. I have concerns, Mr. Morgan, regarding the safety of the public, regarding not only the allegation, but what the court finds to be a high likelihood of conviction, given not only evidence that was alleged to have been found, but also statements that were alleged to have been made by yourself, including but not limited to the allegation you stated that you alleged a demon pretending to be your wife. Further allegations continue that you struck your wife with a plastic sword during the assault. When she fell to the floor, you observed her suffering and retrieved a large pair of plumber's pliers, striking her in the back of the head to a point, as throughout the investigator's report, matters of her body were found, skull and otherwise, throughout the room, patterns of blood and tissue as indicated by the people. The court finds this to be an extremely concerning assaultive allegation, and I have high concerns regarding the safety of the public. This is not a flight risk. This is a danger to the community. Given this very serious offense, court finding that guilt is evident, presumption of guilt is great, being a high likelihood of conviction, not only for the statements that you were alleged to have made, but also for the evidence that was alleged to have been found at the scene. The court is going to remand you into custody for further proceedings, as recommended by the people. So Mr. Morgan, you're going to be denied bond at this point. Any questions on your court dates?
I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to be, you know, I don't. You're right.
All right, Mr. Morgan, if you don't have any questions on court dates or bond conditions, you're all set.
The judge, weighing both sides, ultimately decided to remand Morgan into custody. The court cited the troubling details of the case and Morgan's own statements as indicators of a strong likelihood of conviction. While Morgan remains presumed innocent until proven guilty, the legal process will now determine the next steps as the case proceeds. On the morning of May 13th, 2023, Patrice Wilson, a 29-year-old nurse at Detroit Receiving Hospital, had just completed her overnight shift. As she walked to her car in the hospital's parking lot, she had no idea that her ex-boyfriend, Jameer Miller, 36, was waiting for her. Disguised in a wig, hat, and glasses, Miller entered her vehicle, fatally shot her, then moved into the driver's seat and drove away. Later that same day, Wilson's car was found in Novi, Michigan. Her body was discovered in the trunk. The next day, Miller turned himself in to Detroit police. Investigators soon learned that Wilson had been trying to end their relationship. Miller had a documented history of domestic violence, and it became clear that this was not an isolated act of rage, but a tragic culmination of ongoing abuse. On October 10, 2023, Miller pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. At his sentencing hearing, held months later, Wilson's family members addressed the court with heartbreaking victim impact statements. Her mother, cousin, and uncle spoke about the unbearable loss, the void left in their lives, and the trauma endured since that day. Patrice had been a joyful, selfless person, a nurse, a daughter, a mother who was deeply loved by those around her.
I have two victim impact statements that I will read. If I could start with those and then proceed to the individuals seated in the jury box.
You may.
First is the victim impact statement from Rosalind, R-O-S-L-I-N-D, Livingston, the mother of Patrice. Today I will be the voice of my daughter Patrice. I was sitting going through my daughter's phone and her notes back in December 1st of 2021. She wrote to herself, "I'm in love with a man who murdered the mother of his child. So I ask you, Judge, as you sentence this monster, took her life duties away as a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a woman who served her community as a nurse to show no mercy. Thank you." The second victim impact statement I have is from Kalise, K-A-L-I-S-E, Thomas. "Jameer, you murdered my best friend and my first cousin, Patrice. Your horrendous act has devastated my family and destroyed her mother. The sleepless nights are too numerous to count. The nightmares, the endless stream of tears haven't stopped. Nor will they anytime soon. Patrice could light up a room, her infectious smile, her giddy laugh. To hear her voice again as I walk through the door to her, 'Hey girl,' is all a distant memory. The tremendous void will never be filled and the heartbreak will never go away. All we have is photos and videos, just memories, but the memory of Patrice will live forever. My only regret is that I didn't hug my cousin once more. Jameer, you took Patrice away from her child, her family, and friends for your own satisfaction. Jameer, you hurt us in a way that's indescribable. You have not showed any mercy for your cowardly acts since May 13th of 2023. From that time, you talked to your mom on the jail phone as you blamed everyone but yourself. Your nonchalant attitude in the courtroom or via Zoom makes me sick to my stomach. No amount of time that you plead to will ever give my family the closure that we need or, better yet, deserve. All you have left is prison. You will forever be known as a murderer. Every time your cell door slams shut, may it be a reminder of what you did, taking Patrice's life. You don't deserve the privilege of being a free man ever again. You are evil, and I hope every day of your life, my first friend and my first cousin Patrice stays on your mind."
My beloved niece was not just a nurse, but a caring and selfish mother who dedicated her life to helping others. She had a heart of gold, always giving back to others. Our bond was strong, and we supported each other through thick and thin. Her absence has left an irreplaceable void in our lives. Her memory will forever be the source of inspiration and love. The loss of Patrice, who I love dearly, has left our family shattered. Her big smile, kindness, and sweetness defines her.
Well, of course, you know that was the mother of my son. He took her. She wasn't scared of him at all. She fought back. That's why you lost and she won. Why do you think you won?
Speak to me, please.
He did not win. He lost. This is an L. Forever, his family. Look at the embarrassment that he just showed. He in here shaking his head, Your Honor. Like, yeah, oh, man, you know you crying yourself to sleep. You about to take this plea? Take it. Just know that he will never make it out of this. It's gonna be them calls and they're gonna be fading. Family gonna forget about you. Your mama gonna forget about you. Your friends, your cousins, everybody, they gonna forget about you.
My baby cousin, this is a sentence that I struggle to say because it makes it reality. The reality now is that another child has to live without their mother. Another beautiful black woman destroyed rather than loved and cherished. Another sibling enduring agonizing pain because of a person not fit to be labeled as a man. Not even worthy of being called a human. The bricks and bars that would be in his place of residence and resting place is much of a blessing.
One of the most powerful moments came from her grandmother, Pamela Golston, who told the court that Miller was not fit to live, expressing the anger and sorrow that words could hardly contain.
Angry, but you have caused on my family, me. You know, it's almost like words I don't even want to, if I can say to you, I don't understand you. What kind of person are you? Where you come from? Who can even support you right now? You know, the hurt that you have caused on my family, you don't deserve. You need life forever. It's not even, it's hard for me to talk right now, because what I really like to say or touch, what kind of person were you? What kind of person are you to do this to her? Every time you think about her, you talk about you loved her. How could you love a person and you took her life? How? Is that love? Is that really love? Man. Oh, I wish you could get up and talk, but talk to me. Me. I'm the one that you should have met. Really. Should have been me. Why did you do this to my child? Why did you do this to my family? Why? Why?
Her family remembered Patrice for her infectious smile, her dedication to others, and her vibrant spirit that once lit up every room she entered. Miller's own statement, read aloud by his attorney, conveyed regret.
I can read it for him. Can I read it for him?
That's fine.
I sit up every night, trying to figure out what to say, beating myself up because I know that there is nothing I can say to make things okay. Nothing to say to make this reverse. Nothing to say to heal our families. This has been the worst, most haunting experience of my life. I have dreams and nightmares of all of our great times, all of our okay times, all of our dates and trips, even the bad and the toxic arguments. I would trade the world to have them back, and not this truth of tragedy. I literally wake up sweating, heart beating heavy because of reenactments of this morning caused much pain to so many loved ones. Patrice didn't deserve this. We don't deserve to lose both our lives over foolishness. We had people that really loved and cared for us. I really hurt over this. I wanted to cry when Miss Rosalind took the stand because I felt her pain. I felt exactly how she felt in my body. Patrice was my heart. All she wanted from me was to leave the streets alone and not waste my potential. All she wanted was security, and I'll never leave her and be able to be each other's crutch and backbone. I failed her. I failed us. I failed our kids, our family, and our friends. I am so ashamed. All she wanted from me was to submit to Christ, pray, and repent. And now look, money is the root to evil. I swear. All I wanted was my money, and all she wanted was me to pay off that rental. And now we pay with our lives. I wish that now I could have been the bigger person and said, yes, pay it off. It was not worth this. I've been to ground zero 20 times and got to the top floor. I don't know what was different. Could have been the police raid and seizure that had me thinking corrupted. I think about that morning so often that I find myself in deep thought and then crying. I think about the moments leading up to getting in the car. I think about what happened in the car. I think about when I said, come on, let's go back to receiving. I think about her telling me how to stop the bleeding. I think about her telling me she didn't want the police to kill me. I think about our last moment. It hurt so bad. I wish we could have put our mothers in this situation. I truly do. This is the hardest pill to swallow ever. To this day, I'm at disbelief. I still try to dial her number thinking that this is a dream. But I know it's not. I know she ain't going to answer. And she always answers. I wish you would have told me to take her back when I wanted to. I believe at least she would have had a chance at life no matter what would have happened to me. She still, after all this, didn't want for me to be harmed. And this will continue to hurt my soul every second of eternity. I have so many great memories of our time together. I catch myself when I smile. I hold myself when I cry. I guess this is the first time ever merciful, because I accept punishment without a fight. I beg for forgiveness. I have compassionate treatment of the unfortunate, and I pray for our family, our children, and our friends. Chris Rock said, and I quote, that you never know that the last time you see someone will be the last time that you see someone. This may be the last time I see anyone, the last time anyone sees me.
He admitted to the harm he caused and expressed that he thinks about the moment every day.
We're here today because the defendant pled guilty to what could only be described as a brutal, thoughtless, senseless act of domestic violence. The defendant, as evidenced from his pre-sentence report, has a history of domestic violence between other women and obviously now Miss Wilson. The defendant in his pre-sentence report made a comment about this offense. And his comment about this was that it was unnecessary and should not have happened. The people agree that that statement on the part of the defendant is 100% accurate.
Ms. Woodside, can you do the prosecutor the courtesy of listening to her as she's addressing the court on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan?
Yes, Your Honor, I was listening to her.
Well, you were also speaking, so I'm going to ask you to pay attention to what's going on. Go ahead, Ms. Downey.
Thank you, Judge. That statement is 100% accurate. This was a crime that never should have happened because he never should have went to Detroit Receiving Hospital that morning. But he did. Out of jealousy, out of anger, we don't know. But he went there with a purpose. He went there to stalk Patrice. He went there to ambush her, and he did. 35 years isn't enough for somebody's life. It isn't. I agree with Ms. Golston. But it is a reasonable plea given the circumstances of the case, given his guidelines, and I ask the court to impose that 35 to 60-year sentence that the people and the defendant have agreed to.
The prosecution emphasized that 35 years in prison, while substantial, could never truly measure the value of Patrice's life. The court sentenced Miller to 35 to 60 years in prison. While justice was served legally, the emotional wounds remain. Patrice's story now stands as a painful reminder of how dangerous intimate partner violence can be, especially for those trying to leave. Her family later filed a lawsuit against Detroit Medical Center, citing inadequate security on hospital grounds, hoping, in some way, to prevent another tragedy like this one. In June 2019, a peaceful evening in northeast Minneapolis turned tragic when 39-year-old Steve Marky, a paralegal from Plymouth, Minnesota, was sitting in his parked car near 14th Avenue and Tyler Street. Two boys, Hussein Braveheart and Jared Osman, approached him, wearing bandanas and carrying weapons. What started as a carjacking quickly escalated. As Marky tried to drive away, Osman fired the fatal shot. Braveheart also fired his weapon, but did not hit Marky. The two fled the scene immediately. The boys didn't stop there. They went on to carjack another victim, rob a cell phone store, and lead police on a high-speed chase. Their crime spree ended when they crashed a stolen SUV and were arrested. The violent nature and string of offenses sent shockwaves through the community. Initially, Braveheart was charged in juvenile court with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and robbery. Prosecutors, citing his criminal history and the gravity of the crime, argued he should be tried as an adult. Though a lower court disagreed, the Minnesota Supreme Court later overturned that decision in November 2022, ruling that public safety required Braveheart to be tried as an adult due to his repeated failure in juvenile rehabilitation programs. Meanwhile, Osman had already pleaded guilty in adult court and received over 21 years in prison. Braveheart's legal path, however, took a different turn. In August 2023, he entered a guilty plea for aiding and abetting second-degree intentional murder. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty's office offered a controversial deal: probation and credit for the 4 years Braveheart had already spent in custody. Prosecutors argued he was young at the time and had made significant progress during incarceration. The plea deal drew strong criticism, especially from Steve Marky's family. His father, Jerry Marky, gave an emotional impact statement in court, recounting the night he learned his son had been killed and condemning Braveheart's role.
I'm Steve's father, and I'm here to give a victim's impact statement. Although I have no words to convey the sense of anguish and loss when you find out that your youngest son was executed in Minneapolis by a serial violent predator. I'll give you a little feeling of how this goes. On June 11th, I'm sitting in my 2019. I'm sitting in my living room, reading, sort of easing my way toward bed. I see a squad car come slowly down the street. I wonder what he's doing. It's a little late for him to be selling tickets to the policeman's ball or whatever. They stop in front of my house. They exit the car. They come to the door and knock. I open the door and begin one of the saddest conversations a parent could ever expect to have. They're very short on details. They won't say how or why or whatever. But the bottom line is, your son was killed. Your son was murdered in a violent incident in Minneapolis. And no further details. That's it. They don't have it or they won't offer them to me. So I'm numb, I'm stunned, I don't know how to feel or what to do, but I have to pick up the phone and call family members and tell them that Steve Marky, they'll never see Steve alive again. That poor Steve, a gentle guy who was parked in northeast Minneapolis watching the railroad cars go by, was attacked and murdered senselessly. Okay, so, after a few days, details start to be come up, and we find out that he's been attacked by two young men while he was sitting there watching the cars go by. They demanded his car and then shot him because he didn't meet their demands quickly or as efficiently as they might like. They then fled the scene, carjacked another woman's car at gunpoint, robbed a cell phone store, were seen by the police, fled, had a car chase, and were apprehended. Their crime spree did not end with my son's murder. It only began. Okay. It turns out after they murdered Steve, they fled the scene, retrieved a backpack that they had previously hidden, which included a change of clothes in case they didn't want to be recognized, and a new set of guns, another set of guns. I don't understand all the legal terminology, and they say it's without premeditation. Well, they may not know who they were going to kill, but they knew they were going to hurt somebody, and they prepared adequately to escape in case things went wrong. Okay, the first defendant pleads guilty. He's given a sentence of 20-some years, as we think, well, okay, that's appropriate. The second one, Mr. Braveheart, who's 2 weeks short of his 16th birthday, asked to be treated as a juvenile. He's adequately, his defense is adequately supplied per the overseeing of the original Hennepin County Chief Prosecutor, Mary Moriarty. He's defended all the way up to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court finds him to be sentenced as an adult, that his crimes dictate, and his past and his history and all his actions up to this point dictate that he should stand trial as an adult. Okay, up and down, how do you feel? We're relieved the Supreme Court acknowledges what we can clearly see. This person's a serial criminal. He's violent. He uses guns. He attacks people, and now he's murdered someone. So, okay, we figure he'll get the same type of sentence as his co-defendant, and we think that's reasonable. Then, after a while, we're notified by our now Hennepin County attorney, formerly Chief Public Defender, Mary Moriarty, that she's not recommending any prison. She's not recommending anything like that. She's giving him a slap on the hand and counseling. We're shocked. We can't believe this. The person who cold-bloodedly murdered my son is getting off with probation. And why? Because he's a whole new man. When the Supreme Court said when he attended programming in the past, he escaped. He didn't meaningfully participate. He didn't take part at all. But now that he's been incarcerated and he can't escape, he's decided to give them a little happy talk. It doesn't make sense to our family.
He argued that Braveheart was not a passive bystander, but a key figure who had introduced Osmond to weapons and planned their actions. Public pressure grew after Judge Michael Burns rejected the original plea agreement in October 2023, saying it failed to match the seriousness of the crime.
Therefore, based on my review of the record, I am not accepting Mr. Braveheart's guilty plea at this time.
We're grateful that he made that decision, which is a brave decision.
Were you surprised?
Yes, negotiated plea agreements between parties are generally accepted. It's extremely unusual for a negotiated plea agreement to be rejected.
A revised deal was eventually reached. In December 2023, Braveheart pleaded guilty to first-degree attempted assault and was sentenced to 54 months. With time already served, he was released immediately. Though Judge Burns accepted the sentence as legally appropriate, he expressed concern that it might send the wrong message about accountability. In the early hours of September 15, 2024, the normally calm intersection of West 25th Street and Lorraine Avenue in Cleveland's Ohio City neighborhood was overtaken by chaos. Around 2:30 a.m., a group of approximately 20 vehicles, including cars, scooters, and bikes, blocked off the streets to stage a street takeover. Among those involved were 19-year-old Gage Franklin of Akron and 20-year-old John Dietrich of Barberton, joined by a boy. The group performed dangerous driving stunts, including donuts, and created a scene that disrupted emergency services, most notably delaying an ambulance on its way to a hospital. Franklin arrived at the scene in a 1992 Ford Explorer. At one point, the boy accomplice created a flaming ring where others stood inside, risking serious injury. As police approached the scene, the trio fled in Franklin's SUV. Their actions, however, were recorded by surveillance cameras and circulated widely on social media, eventually leading to their identification. Within weeks, authorities made arrests. Franklin was taken into custody on October 3, 2024, and Dietrich was arrested 5 days later. Both were charged with aggravated riot, inducing panic, and arson. On February 12, 2025, they pleaded guilty to all charges in Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court. On March 6, 2025, during sentencing, Judge John Russo expressed concern over the growing trend of organized street takeovers. He noted the clear planning involved, the risk posed to public safety, and the disruption caused to a revitalized part of the city.
It's clearly an organized criminal activity that somehow you jump into, whether it's on social media or not. You find yourself engaged in this activity with, I think Mr. Maher may have said, or maybe even the state of Ohio, we're pretty lucky when you look at those tire marks and the missing of the car on that I could see. I can't see out of that picture on the outside, but that somebody didn't get hurt. And there was a couple times people had to jump, and they were actually the people who were causing this distraction. And then watching that ambulance pull up and get stuck in there as well. I mean, that your part in it causes, as you can hear from some of the statements from the community, not only heartache, but fear for the future, but fear that somebody could come in, close down. This is well-organized criminal activity, as you can see how you get involved in it. And knowing that you accept responsibility is important for me, but the reality is, how do you protect the community or punish you when there's economic harm of nearly $40,000? I know that you're probably saying to yourselves, and I think maybe that now I could understand because I didn't see this video before. I told you I shouldn't see it because you might go to trial, and at that time might try a case to me. But I could see now where some of the discussion with the state of Ohio was $40,000 of damage. You might not have done the $40,000. There are people there that I don't know if you know or not, but obviously that information hasn't been shared with authorities. But that damage in the middle of a really nice area that they've really revitalized in Cleveland, you bring that to the city of Cleveland. And so that economic damage, the organized criminal activity, what about this did you think was right? And then, I mean, you put yourself there. You drove there, you parked on the wrong side of the street after I look at it. You bring a gas can, and there's clearly intent to light a street on fire, whatever the intent was to cause harm. When I look at all of those factors and knowing that the community control sanction is presumed in this case, in knowing that Mr. Franklin, you don't have criminal activity in the past, but Mr. Dietrich, you do, I do find that a punishment of the offender is a sentence that this court believes is the just sentence with respect to the charges that you have before me. And I am going to sentence you both to a term of incarceration here today. And with respect to my sentence on the aggravated riot, I'm going to have a sentence for both of you of 1 year at Lorraine Correctional Institution. In inducing panic, a 10-month term of incarceration at Lorraine Correctional Institution. And on the misdemeanor, 6 months in the county jail. I'll run those times concurrent to each other, so you'll have a 1 year sentence at Lorraine Correctional Institution As I noted to both of you, you'll have possibly post-release control. So that's supervision by a parole officer for 2 years. I don't make that determination, the parole authority does. And if you are supervised after completing a full term of incarceration, you could be placed under supervision. If you violate that supervision, the parole authority can send you back to prison for up to 1/2 the time that you served for me on this case. I'll waive any of the fines, fees, and court costs that you have on this case. I'll note that the restitution is joint and severable between the two of you, owed to the city of Cleveland in the amount of $39,242.80. I'll note for the record that you both have credit for time served. Mr. Dietrich has 17 days of credit. Mr. Franklin has 15 days of credit, plus any time while you await your transportation to Lorraine Correctional Institution. I'll order you in the custody of the sheriff to transport you at this time before their transportation. Is there anything further from the state of Ohio?
No, Your Honor.
Anything on behalf of your client, Mr. Motton?
Your Honor, we would hope at the appropriate time the court would consider judicial release if Mr. Dietrich displays exemplary conduct at the institution.
Yeah, and I always take into consideration judicial release, and of course that is based on their time while they serve, and then also whatever motions are filed from you in the state. Of course, I'll take all that into consideration.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Downs, anything further?
There is one issue, Your Honor, which I'm not certain how it could be facilitated at this point. I believe back on January 28th, there was a discussion at the pretrial. Again, there was Frank Triazzi from my office was representing Mr. Franklin at the time with regard to his truck still being in evidence, and that potentially when the case resolved, that truck could be released to him via journal entry. Again, I'm not sure. I'll work with Mr. Franklin on how to try and facilitate that if that's
Is the state looking for a forfeiture? I didn't see that as part of the agreement.
It was not charged in this case, Your Honor. I'll work with Ms. Downs or Ms. Triazzi regarding that release of property.
And I'll do a specific journal entry. If somebody could get the car and the make and the serial number, I'll do a journal entry ordering it released.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Judge John Russo sentenced each of them to 1 year in prison at the Lorraine Correctional Institution, although the total economic damage from the event exceeded $400,000. Franklin and Dietrich were ordered to pay $39,242.80 in restitution to the city of Cleveland, the portion attributed directly to them. The judge also ruled that both would be added to the state's arson registry for the next 10 years. The judge also left the door open for potential judicial release, depending on their conduct in prison. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.